The teams have covered more than 1,200 miles in stages that have taken them from the far north to the borders. More than 70 teams began the rally, including reporting Scotland's own Alan Douglas, co-driving with Andrew Cowan. The overall winner was Swede Stig Blomqvist, followed by the first Scot home, Jimmy McRae from Lanark, and the next Scots home, Andrew Cowan and Alan Douglas, in a creditable 7th place overall. Well, with his personal account of the final stages of the rally, Alan Douglas.
Arriving back in Glasgow just before midnight last night, the drivers were up and about again before dawn for the rally's final loop around the Trossachs. And first off was the man who had led the event from the start, Swede Stig Blomqvist, in the spectacular turbocharged Audi Quattro. In the cool light of the morning, he streaked away from his only real challenger, Scotsman Jimmy McRae. Driving the Rothmans Opel Manta, he was watching his hopes of a home win rapidly disappear as the favourite continued his faultless drive. Through the Trossachs, McRae's series of fast times through the special stages made little impression on the results sheet. But he was managing to keep almost 2 minutes ahead of his rival, Englishman Russell Brooks, in a Vauxhall Chevette. But heavy overnight rain had done little to make the going easy, and the damp forest tracks around Loch Katrine soon became treacherous, with several cars losing valuable seconds after spinning on the tight bends. One victim was Louise Aitken from Duns, who retired with gearbox problems in her Ford Escort. The weather began to brighten around 6 this morning as the remaining field of half the original starters pushed on through the final leg of the 4-day event. Blomqvist put on a late burst and almost came to grief when he left the road on one stage. All McRae could do was to hold on, knowing it was impossible to try to tackle the 5-minute lead which the Swede had built up. Around the lapping waters of the Carron Reservoir, the battle continued within the top 10. As McRae and Blomqvist fought it out at the lead, Brooks concentrated on keeping his 3rd place. Per Eklund, the other Swede in the Toyota Corolla, gave a remarkable performance in his 1600cc car. Terry Cabey's Vauxhall Chevette was plagued by punctures but was holding on to 5th place, while in the Audi 80 Quattro, Andrew Cowan and I were also being challenged. Enjoying the Scottish scenery and the developing battle, 2 crews from Iceland and Germany. By 9:30, activity switched to Fife, and after 5 hours of driving, the weather and the conditions improved. And so did Blomqvist's sensational drive. Current Scottish Championship leader Jimmy Fleming from Ayr collected valuable points towards the title, and the leaders headed south again to the rally finish in Glasgow. Leading the trio, Blomqvist, with McRae having to settle for runner-up, followed by Russell Brooks, who now has to share the British Open Championship lead with the Swede.
And Russell Brooks behind him. So give them a big hand.
Cowan and I had a late fight on our hands, holding back the powerful Audi Quattro of Northumbrian businessman Darrell Widener. Well, that's it. We've reached the finish. As far as I understand it, we're lying 7th. That's unofficial, of course, so we'll get that confirmed later on. But as far as I can gather, we're 7th, but only just because over the last few stages, the big Audi Quattro of Darrell Widener has been catching up on us. And with only about 2 stages to go, he was only 20 seconds behind. We managed to hold him off, and as far as I know, we've finished with about 10 seconds to spare.
Alan has been terrific. For someone who has done so little international rallying, he's been absolutely excellent. We've got on very well together. We've had our laughs and had our sort of disappointments sometimes too, but we've really clicked and the thing's gone very well.
And you want to turn around now and go back and start again and have another crack?
Well, that's just what I suggested. I don't think he's too keen at the minute, though.
Well, not immediately, perhaps, but hopefully next year. Meanwhile, the celebration champagne belonged to Blomqvist.
Well, Alan, the champagne looked terrific, but the rally itself looked incredibly rugged. How tough was it, really?
Well, it was pretty tough. The film you saw there doesn't actually really give the impression of just how rough it is.
Well, I don't know, all these great chunks of Scottish countryside flying off, that looked very dangerous to me.
Well, I suppose it is dangerous, but you are very well protected in these cars. But it is rough. On the question of the roughness, there was one point during the night that, well, last night, in fact, I'm sort of losing
track of time.
But last night it was the floor of the car was actually torn open by a rock that we hit. And first of all, we got dust through, and then we got mud through. And at one point, we had about 2 or 3 inches of mud and water sloshing about on the floor. But
it always makes me feel a bit sick to watch the cars cornering as they do in that apparently wild way. How does it actually affect people within the car? I mean, do you manage to keep yourself together, or does it bother you inside?
Well, it didn't bother me this time. In fact, it is a fairly common complaint amongst co-drivers. The driver's all right, he's got something to hang on to, but the co-driver sits there and he's totally dependent on the driver. It is a problem amongst co-drivers feeling sick, but they overcome it.
Well, despite the arduousness of it, you must have had a few laughs on the way, knowing you.
Well, yes, it's been very enjoyable. There was a terrific moment this morning in the early hours of some unholy hour this morning where Jimmy McRae went up to talk to a German driver, and he was actually leaning on the driver's door. Now, this car was held together with tape anyway. It had fallen apart during the night, and it was held together with tape. Jimmy leant on the door, and the door actually fell off. So it ended up being taped up as well, along with all the rest of the car.
How did you manage for sleep, Alan? You look pretty tired to me, if you don't mind me saying so.
I do feel pretty tired, but it's not difficult staying awake when you're going through the forest at that sort of speed. No, I think I'm all right.
Well, I hope you'll have recovered sufficiently to drive this particular programme next week. Do you think you will?
Well, I certainly hope so. I hope it'll be a slightly less hazardous.